What if I told you that in the world's most dangerous business, missing your deadline, going billions over budget, and completely failing your initial design goals, doesn't bankrupt you? In fact, it actually makes you richer. In normal corporate America, if you build a product that explodes in testing, you go out of business. But inside the dark, secretive world of U.S. military manufacturing, a massive cost overrun isn't a disaster. It's a direct injection of pure, guaranteed profit. Welcome to the upside-down economics of defense finance, where conventional business logic goes to die. And where a hidden accounting trick has quietly built some of the wealthiest corporations on planet Earth. Think about how standard business works for a second. You buy raw materials, you pay workers, you ship a finished item, and you pray the market buys it at a price higher than what it cost you to make. If you spend too much on research, your margins collapse. If a competitor makes it cheaper, you get wiped out. But the defense industrial complex operates on a financial model so counterintuitive, so bizarre, that when Wall Street analysts first look at the books, they think it's a math error. To understand this illusion, we have to go back to a quiet boardroom decision that changed corporate history forever. A financial structure known as the cost-plus contract. Imagine walking into a bank and asking for a loan, but instead of setting an interest rate, the banker says, "Spend whatever you want, take as long as you need, and when you're finished, bring us the receipts. We'll pay for every single penny you spent, plus an extra 10% fee on top for your trouble." It sounds like a total joke, right? No sane financial institution would ever sign a contract like that. Yet, this exact deal is signed every single day in Washington, transferring hundreds of billions of dollars from taxpayers directly into private corporate bank accounts. But here is the terrifying question. If the government guarantees to cover your costs, what incentive do you ever have to keep those costs down? The answer is absolutely none. In fact, the incentive is to do the exact opposite under a cost-plus contract. A project that stays on budget and costs $1 billion might yield $100 million in profit. But if that exact same project encounters unexpected engineering flaws, delays, and ballooning development cycles that push the total cost to $5 billion, that exact same percentage fee now pays out $500 million. Read that again. The more a defense contractor struggles, the more money its shareholders actually make. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, that's a crazy loophole. But surely the government catches on eventually, right? Surely they eventually cancel the contract and hire someone cheaper. Well, that brings us to the first major cliffhanger of this entire industry. Because canceling a major weapon system isn't just difficult, it's virtually impossible. And the reason why has nothing to do with technology, and everything to do with a brilliant, dark corporate strategy known as economic hostage-taking. Let's look at a real-world case study. Consider one of the most expensive weapon systems in human history, the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. On paper, it was supposed to be an affordable, multi-role jet replacing older aircraft across military branches. But as the years dragged on, costs exploded past $1 trillion. Schedules slipped by nearly a decade. Software glitches grounded whole fleets. In any normal free market, a project with those kinds of numbers would have been axed in year 3. So why didn't it get canceled? Because the defense prime contractor behind it executed a masterclass in financial defense before a single jet ever left the runway. They didn't build the manufacturing line in just one city, or even one state. They systematically fragmented the supply chain across 450 separate congressional districts. They placed engine assembly in one state, radar engineering in another, wing fabrication in a third, and titanium forging in a fourth. Why? Because when a politician sits down in Congress to vote on cutting a military budget, they aren't just looking at military strategy. They are looking at thousands of high-paying manufacturing jobs inside their own home district. If they vote to cancel the program, those factories close, those voters lose their jobs, and that politician loses their next election. By spreading the money into almost every single state, the contractor created a political shield so strong that canceling the jet became political suicide. The contract wasn't just funded, it was literally unkillable. But here is where the story takes an even darker turn. Because while cost-plus contracts guarantee early cash flow, they are actually just the bait. They aren't where these military giants make their real fortune. The initial development and sales phase of a military vehicle or weapon is barely 20 to 30% of its total financial value. The real wealth, the hidden treasure chest that funds multi-billion-dollar stock buybacks and decades of rising dividends, lies hidden in the shadows of what the industry calls sustainment. Imagine buying a brand new car from a dealership, but the moment you drive it off the lot, you realize something horrifying. The hood is welded shut. The tires are a custom size that no one else manufactures. The engine oil is a proprietary formula protected by international law. And if you dare bring that car to an independent mechanic, or try to fix a flat tire yourself, you face massive federal lawsuits for intellectual property infringement. That is not a hypothetical nightmare. That is the exact business model of modern defense manufacturing. Once a military platform is officially adopted, the government doesn't actually own the underlying software code or the technical blueprints for the spare parts. The private defense firm retains the exclusive intellectual property rights. So when an aircraft needs a replacement bolt, a new radar screen, or a software patch 20 years after it was designed, the government cannot go to the open market to shop for the best price. They are legally forced to go back to the original manufacturer. And because there is zero competition, the contractor can mark up the price of simple components by hundreds, sometimes thousands, of percent. We are talking about basic metal brackets costing thousands of dollars each, specialized microchips marked up to eye-watering prices, and software updates that cost hundreds of millions just to patch basic bugs. It is the ultimate high-margin subscription service. Wrapped inside a national security mandate, the government pays to develop the product, pays for the cost overruns, pays for the initial build, and then spends the next 40 years paying astronomical subscription fees just to keep the equipment turned on. Which brings us to another massive mystery. If this business is so profitable, so insulated from risk, and so financially guaranteed, why isn't every major company on Earth pivoting to build military hardware? Why aren't tech giants like Apple or Google using their massive cash reserves to build their own fighter jets and tanks? To understand why, you have to look at the invisible wall that surrounds this entire sector, a wall built out of extreme regulatory paranoia. Entering the military manufacturing market doesn't just require capital. It requires surviving a brutal regulatory labyrinth known as ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulations. Under these rules, sharing a single line of technical code with an uncleared employee, or misplacing a single physical document, can lead to criminal indictments, massive federal fines, and corporate execution. The compliance costs alone run into hundreds of millions of dollars before a company ever makes a single dollar in sales. For traditional tech companies, the risk is simply too high. In Silicon Valley, the culture is to move fast and break things. You launch a product, patch the bugs later, and scale as quickly as possible. But in defense, if you break something, you go to federal prison. This creates an impenetrable moat, a barrier to entry so absurdly high that a small handful of legacy primes completely control a market worth hundreds of billions of dollars every single year. They have built a fortress where traditional venture-backed startups starve to death in what insiders call the Valley of Death. The 2 to 3 year gap between inventing a brilliant piece of military technology and actually securing a formal government procurement contract. Hundreds of innovative startups with superior technology have gone bankrupt right in this gap, simply because they didn't have the cash reserves to survive the government's agonizingly slow bureaucracy. And yet, as bulletproof as this financial engine sounds, a massive shift is happening right now. A secret war for the future of military wealth that could render these traditional billion-dollar giants obsolete almost overnight. For decades, the moat was physical manufacturing, heavy steel, massive shipyards, complex jet engines, but modern warfare is changing fast. Today, a $10,000 autonomous drone powered by artificial intelligence can destroy a $100 million warship or a multi-million-dollar tank in a matter of seconds. The value in defense is violently shifting away from physical iron and toward autonomous software, computer vision, and real-time data processing, and this shift is terrifying the old-school defense contractors. Why? Because they aren't software companies, they are heavy industrial manufacturers used to multi-decade build cycles. Now, nimble, venture-backed defense startups are entering the field. They aren't waiting for cost-plus contracts. They are spending their own private capital to develop cutting-edge autonomous systems and offering them to the military as finished. Off-the-shelf software solutions, they are directly attacking the slow, expensive, cost overrun model that made the legacy primes rich. So how are the old giants reacting? Are they building better software? No, they are doing what they have always done best. They are using their massive cash flows to buy up the competition, lobbying to keep regulatory barriers high, and absorbing these small software innovators before they can grow big enough to disrupt the ecosystem. When you step back and look at the entire board, you realize something profound. The military manufacturing industry isn't really in the business of defense. It is in the business of risk transfer. They take the immense financial, technological, and operational risks of modern engineering and pass every single cent of that risk onto the taxpayer, while capturing every single cent of the upside for their private shareholders. It is a world where failure is funded, where delays create profit, where maintenance is a multi-decade monopoly, and where political geography is the ultimate competitive moat. So the next time you hear about a new military program running years behind schedule, or costing billions more than original estimates, don't assume the companies involved are panicked. Don't assume their executives are losing sleep, because behind those headline-grabbing disasters,